Person rises on a word and falls on a syllable.
Eric, this is our sweetness and light. It is a fuck all wonder, and we have meaning in this world.
We've been married only weeks. Barely weeks.
Everything's barely weeks. We have minutes to live.
We don't want to start counting the times, do we? And having solemn discussions on the subject.
No, we want to do it.
I don't want to give you lessons in self-denial and social responsibility because I don't believe for a second you're as crude as you sound.
Talent is more erotic when it's wasted.
We have a report of imminent activity in the area. Imminent. The nature is yet unknown. Complex says use caution.
We have a situation here.
We have a situation, all right. We have a yuan carry that could crush us in hours.
Your prostate is asymmetrical.
Something will happen soon, maybe today, to correct the acceleration of time and bring nature back to normal, more or less.
This is my mission worldwide to sabotage power and wealth. I am an action painter of creamed pie.
Everything in our lives, yours and mine, has brought us to this moment. Why are you here?
Cosmopolis is one of those gifts that come out of the blue that you always hope for and rarely happen. A producer whose name I had heard, but who I didn't know, Paulo Branco, a Portuguese producer who produced about 200 movies, said he would like to meet me because he had a proposal.
I met Don DeLillo 3 or 4 years ago in Estoril, because I have a small festival in Estoril where I put artists discussing about films and cinema. Don was there and I love all his work, and when I read Cosmopolis 3 or 4 years ago, I really thought that it was a very cinematographic book. And I asked him if the rights were free. He told me, Paul, if you want, I can let you try to do a movie out of that. And I thought this is really for David Cronenberg. It's like between Crash and Existence, very sensual material and at the same time violent.
We met at a restaurant with his son, and they handed me this book. I said, well, I do know the works of Don DeLillo, and I've read, Underworld and Libra and other books of his, and he's a wonderful writer. I didn't know Cosmopolis at all. I read it, and then 2 days later, I phoned him and said, I want to do this. You're absolutely right. It's fantastic. I wrote the script in 6 days, but that's very unusual for me, believe me. Scripts are very difficult to write, especially if there's an original one. This is an adaptation, but even then, that can take a long time. But the reason it went so beautifully is because the book just had a wonderful cinematic core with the most amazing dialogue, and I really basically spent 3 days transcribing the dialogue just by itself to see what it felt like. Was this a movie? And when I looked at it, I thought, it is a movie. And the next 3 days, I spent filling in the descriptions of the scenes that went with the dialogue, and I had a script. And that's the script we shot with.
Where? I want a haircut.
From on camera, I want you to ride right through here. All right? Guys, we have a couple more cyclists. All right, let's go, ball, let's go. Background.
The novel, in some ways, is very, very much New York. In some other ways, it's kind of universal and prescient, really, because it was written around the year 2000, and it's absolutely fresh right now, 11 years later, in terms of its understanding of where the world was going with the economic crisis and the Wall Street meltdown and all of that stuff. I mean, it was pretty much predicted completely in this book. So is it really about New York, or is it more about the world of financing in general, and how specific do you have to get? In the dialogue, New York is never mentioned. I mean, Wall Street is mentioned and so on, but Wall Street in a generic term, meaning the world of high finance.
It's definitely a commentary on the imbalances that we have within the hierarchy. In this movie, you see the different levels that people exist within our society, from the bottom all the way to the Eric Packers of the world.
78, take 12.
Action!
Background action!
We shot at Union Station, and we had that big opening shot going down the limos and seeing that part of the world, that part of the hierarchy, I guess, and then panning up and seeing the massive pillars of Union Station. I told David, I said, what a great, insightful place to shoot because, you know, if you want to talk about hierarchy, I mean, these Greek or Roman columns that speak of a time where in the past empires have risen and fallen.
Cut!
You guys were just background action in that shot.
Let's really make conversation. It was great.
I really got to feel that it was not a generic city that we're in, but a mythological, iconic city, which didn't need to be specifically New York. You know, it sounds like a total cop-out, but I don't think it is. I think it really works for the movie. So literally, it could take place in Toronto. That was the decision, was to shoot it in Toronto. Yes, we will shoot some background plates that are specific to New York. Yes, the streets will have New York street signs. But we are not obsessive about where we are in New York.
Show me my car.
We're in the limo. Really, that's where we are.
Your rehearsal, crew members, please fall back. Action.
This is the story of a universe in a city, a universal city, a city where everyone and everything exists and can happen. And it's the story of our lead, Eric Packer, encountering every possible form of person in the universe. Tom Wolfe wrote Bonfire of the Vanities, in which he called people like Eric Packer currency traders, hedge fund traders, masters of the universe. So here we have Eric Packer, a master of the universe, traveling across this city in a kind of downward spiral towards his own demise.
All right, positions, everyone, lock it up. Okay, very quickly.
The concept of Rob Pattinson came up because you've got a certain age range. You're looking at actors who are about 25 years old. But first of all, they have to want to work with you. You have to be able to afford them. They have to be available given the schedule you've got. And finally, they have to be able to support the budget that you have. You can't make a movie that costs $20 million, as Cosmopolis did, with unknowns. You simply cannot raise the money as an independent producer. So all of these things finally, to me, narrowed down to only a few actors, and for me, Rob Pattinson was the most interesting one of them all. And I watched a lot of the movies that he had done, including some that are not that well known, one called Little Ashes, in which he plays a young Salvador Dali, which is a pretty interesting role for a young actor, especially a British one.
I'd read the script a year before, and I think someone had just sent it me for interest, and I was interested in it, but I think there are other people attached, and I also thought I was too young. I don't know, it was at a point in, I was doubting myself quite a lot, and I was thinking, I'd never get offered something like that, and then out of the blue, it kind of came out of nowhere, saying like, yeah, do you want to do it? Had no idea how I was going to play it, but I was kind of amazed.
There's a credible threat not to be dismissed. This means right across town.
I've had numerous threats, all credible. I'm still standing here.
Not a threat to your safety, to his.
Who the fuck is his?
Cut, thank you, cut. That's a cut.
I thought he would bring something wonderful to the screen. Something that maybe he didn't even know he had, although I have to say, I think if you watch his movies, he's awfully good. I mean, I think the problem is that his fame rests on the Twilight series, which is, I must say, perhaps not the most demanding kind of movie for an actor, just because there's so much in the way of special effects and all of that that the audience loves. Nonetheless, those actors do have to have a particular charisma on screen for those movies to work. And I didn't dismiss them when I watched them as not indicating something about Rob.
And look around at any time, or just keep always looking? I like all of David's movies a lot. All of them are incredibly different and incredibly thought-provoking, and there's very few directors who are still really allowed to do that so consistently. He hasn't made a bad movie. Unless this one is the one to just take it all down. It's kind of unlikely. Hopefully. I shouldn't speak to you.
Okay, so we will move the counter back.
The script is just one of the most original scripts. I mean, probably the most original script I've ever read since I started acting. And no, it's a very, very, it would be a very stupid thing to say no to.
He knew it was good when we sent it to him, and it was the kind of thing he wanted to do. It scared him, but he knew that being scared was a good thing.
We know the set is here, so I went a little while ago on Twitter, and when you go on Twitter, all the pictures are coming out. So any Robert Pattinson site will be talking about it, talking about the movie, the set, everything. They don't give you all the information. You gotta put two and two together, and if you're a true fan, you know where he's at. Every movie he does, we're here to support.
The dangers of success for a young actor could be that you're just looking for fans. You know, you love your fan base. You love the fact that you've got fans following you all over the world and following your Twitter feed or whatever, because it is kind of soothing. It's a way of feeling that you made it as an actor.
Ready, Walter? Peter's just adding a little flag, I see.
Rob was not deluded about that. If you just play it safe, you might have a nice, comfy career, but if you're serious about being an actor, then you've got to work with interesting directors and other interesting actors. You've got to get to the edges of what you can do. And certainly, this is a very edgy Rob Pattinson we see in this movie.
I like your mother. You have your mother's breasts.
Her breasts?
Just great stand-up tits.
I'm a huge film fan, right? I'm a cinema studies undergraduate student at U of T, and working with David for a second time was such an honor that I was so blindsided with the idea of working on another Cronenberg film that I really didn't even wrap my head around working with Rob at all until our camera tests. And people kept saying to me, oh, you know, that's so exciting. You're going to work with Rob Pattinson. That's so great. And I'm like, yeah, but David Cronenberg, you know? Going to be working with David Cronenberg. And then we were doing our camera tests and we were sitting in the limo. And I kind of remember just sitting across from Rob. And it's just like, wow, this is so weird.
Chemistry on screen is so strange. You have these characters played by Rob Pattinson and Sarah Gadon. They need to have a certain weird chemistry in this movie because they're husband and wife, but they have a strange relationship. How do I know they're going to have that chemistry? I've never seen them in a movie together. I've never seen them in a room together. They don't know each other. There's nothing to guide you but your own intuition, your own taste, your own understanding of what the movie might be. And I won't know if it works until we're actually shooting. Sarah, let me see what happens when you reach for your cup.
I think that everything that Rob brings to the table as an actor in terms of his obvious fame and level of importance because of it works so well for the dynamic of our relationship, because Elise is undoubtedly married to a very important man who she doesn't know very well. And so I think that really influenced our characters and our chemistry.
Beautiful.
I think it was really smart on David's behalf that we didn't really meet before that, because it was a natural process of getting to know each other. Tell me this, where will you go now? What do you do exactly?
Any special reason we're in the car instead of the office?
What makes you think we're in the car instead of the office?
Mark, please. Marker.
To me, it's less about the economy than it is about finding your place in the context of all the craziness around you.
Action.
What have we learned then?
Our system's secure, we're impenetrable. There's no rogue program. Because all the characters in this, they're very specific and they're developed characters, but at the same time, each of them embody a theme or a concept to me. You know, that's what the movie is and each person that Eric is faced with represents a different facet of life.
We've been together, you and I, since the little bitty startup. I want you to tell me that you still have the stamina to do this job, the single-mindedness.
This car, Shiner's got to be a remnant of the old life. He hasn't joined the man and joined the system probably as much as Eric has, and is not dealing with the same existential issues he is as a result. You know, I think he sort of still has one foot in the old way, and sort of like, you know, working class people that become successful, I think, you know, they either keep a strong tie to how they grew up or they abandon it completely. And I think that Shiner does the former, probably.
Right.
He's one of the .com kids, you know, a slacker that became a millionaire.
Cut. Good.
When I heard, you know, Jay, there's something we've been following, there's 2 days on the next Cronenberg movie, I said, please, done and done. I had no idea what I was doing, where it would be, you know, what it would consist of, but it was all irrelevant because I said, I'll pick up the man's dry cleaning and bring him coffee. Honest to God, he's such a massive influence and legitimately one of my heroes.
Drive it right into his back.
Okay.
Just imagine that blade's there.
All right, folks. Roll it. Roll it.
I just wanted to be able to see how he does what he does and see what it's like and just get to meet the man, because all I've ever wanted to do since I was a little kid was to write and direct horror movies in Canada. I remember the first time I saw Videodrome when I was 13 years old, and it just hijacked my imagination. He's someone that's proved you can be an auteur and have a definitive voice and be Canadian and not have to be exported.
Let's check the gate. That was very
good. Check the gate, please. The gate on that. So then we should put the... Checking the gate on that?
He's the exception that makes the rule in that, unfortunately, as a fan of music or movies or writers or anything, you live to see your favorites lose it. Lose whatever they have inside them, the fire, the spark, they get their balls cut off. And he seems to just be hitting his stride. You know, it's like Eastwood. He's only getting better.
There's a time when you have 2 eyes.
Oh, that's right.
And that's how he does it.
And that's how he does it.
Ouch.
It kind of hurts behind the knees.
Does it?
Yeah, you look at it, you go, oh, oh.
Oh, I thought he stabbed you behind the knees. This is good. So, I think we're going to need some blood, though.
More?
Well, yeah, I mean...
I didn't put it all there.
Yeah, I think here, too, because he was sort of... So, you would expect there to be more blood. I think so.
Okay.
How many times have I said that? More blood? I used to have a T-shirt.
Yeah, you should have a T-shirt that just says more blood.
It did.
Well, that's a nice drip going down.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel it.
Okay.
Very good.
You see what you did?
So we will we'll take it from the top.
Really? It is pretty good.
To get the overlap. Okay. So we'll take it from the very beginning.
See where the camera is?
Yeah.
Don't get right behind them.
Yeah.
Keep coming from this side and keep to the side so you can still see them.
That's probably
And that way, if I roll over, you're upstage of me, which means you've got camera time.
Yeah. Sure.
And then
If you
kind of kick to the sides, stab him in the back and the neck, and just keep stabbing until David yells cut.
Quiet, please.
Mark, please.
Marker.
Action. Director Rapp, will this change your policy on the yuan?
The yuan is uncharacteristically inflated, making it unstable. So when it drops,
Very good.
I don't want to die.
Got it. Okay. That was a good one.
I never would have thought the two adjectives I'd used to describe Cronenberg would be smiley and jokey, but they are, and he's super easygoing.
Who would?
The slit skirt rides up high on her thigh.
You didn't see that?
What were you looking at?
I don't know what you were looking at the flowers, I guess.
Did you say you're clean? I focused on the skirt and the thigh.
They have pretty dense subject matter and very loaded dialogue to say, but the tenor on the set didn't reflect that.
We should bring the 21 on a finder into the limo.
It was a very relaxed atmosphere on set for such an intense piece. I was only particularly nervous on the first day, mainly because you could interpret the script in so many different ways and you could play it in so many different ways. And I hadn't really talked to David that much before we started shooting. So I was kind of really felt like I was just dipping my toe in as carefully as I could on the first couple of days.
Action.
What?
Do you ever get the feeling sometimes that you don't know what's going on?
But I think the way he works, he doesn't know either particularly what his movie's about until the first couple of weeks. And so I could feel him kind of molding it. And so you feel a lot more comfortable knowing that there's not a set goal that you're supposed to be achieving, and you can either be getting it right or getting it wrong.
What? What?
He almost rediscovers it after he's written the script. And I think this is a wonderful David trait, because I haven't seen very many other directors do that. And I'll give you one example of it. In DeLillo's book, as we travel through this city in this limousine, there are a tremendous amount of screens that pop up, and they're gigantic screens, and Eric Packer is making his trades on them or seeing other images on them. And as we progressed, we started to design the limo with that in mind. David realized that these screens are actually going to cause us a great deal of problems in terms of continuity, in terms of working with the actors, in terms of camera position in a tight space. So he decided that, well, everything's actually going quite small. You know, your iPad or your tablet, or your iPhone, everything's getting smaller and smaller, and cameras are just pinholes now. So he said, let's work at it that way. let's avoid all the problems that we're going to have with these giant screens. Even though they're visually very seductive, they're not really right anymore. So we started putting these into the furniture and make it as seamless as possible. He's got a surgical incision that he makes in a set or in a part of the story, and that's really where he imbues David Cronenberg into the script.
I know there's 1,000 things you analyze every 10 minutes. Patterns, ratios, indexes, whole maps of information. I love information. Eric, this is our sweetness and light.
Jay, I thought, was going to play it for just straight comedy, I mean, because he's really funny. I was like, oh, that's good casting, and I kind of had an idea of how he was going to do it, and he did this like really heartfelt performance, which completely shocked me, and it kind of went on from there. I mean, every single person who came in played the opposite of what I expected them to play.
Why wife of 22 days? Why not 20? Does 22 sound better? I mean, I understand that they're newly married, but why 22? And it seems to be the number that a lot of people like to quote as well. You know, Elise Schifrin, wife of 22 days.
Eat breakfast yet?
There is obviously the sexual tension between her and Eric, and from when they first meet each other in the morning, each meal is a process of courting. You see this arc in their relationship.
Reveal it around the corner, and then when we do the reverse, Eric is sitting there. So it's a little eccentric, but I think it'll work.
In keeping.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Shall I look for an alternatives to this thing?
Well, I like that a lot, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I just wonder if he can sit
Oh, yeah.
comfortably on it.
He's got.
He's got long legs.
Yeah, he'll fit right. Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Over the years, I've developed my own way of working, and that really involves not rehearsing. I have found the times that I try to be completely useless for me, because once you're on the real set, you're not just sitting around a table the way they do theater rehearsals, but you're on the set in the actual location perhaps, and you're working with a particular camera angle, with a particular lens. That changes everything. It changes the way the dialogue will be delivered and what the dynamic is amongst the people in the scene and so on. So I really want the actors to have input into how they move around the set and what their body language is, because that's as important as language for an actor. You're reading, and yes, you can have the occasional glance, and probably right to the camera, because that'll be him. Okay, then action. In the morning, I have the actors on the set with me, nobody else, and we block the scene. Where are you going to sit? How do you move? You come down here, this is the camera. Not only does this give a dramatic shape for the actors, but it gives a visual shape for me to start with. There, and that adorable pose that she's just naturally, automatically assumed. And then she would look up at the camera, and then we'd cut around to you, and you'd be there for your first one. And you'd just be there. So that's basically the structure. And then, you know, talk, whatever. Whatever you actors do, and then cut, and that's it. I don't want it to be boring to me, having rehearsed it for 5 weeks. I want it to surprise me. Oh my God, I never realized this interchange was so hostile, for example. These actors are bringing it up.
Doubles as a press tool.
Yes, and my initials are corporate. Let me see you sitting there, though. Then we call the crew on to the set. They crowd around, and we perform that. The sound guys know where to put the microphones, and I can start to discuss with my director of photography how we might shoot it, what lens, what angle. It's not a lot of time, so I don't know if we... But if we want to get them both in the same shot, we have to do something like this, and it's rather nice, actually. Sit a little above our line. Then we can replace the steady cam once we get that shot for the dialogue. All right, so we pretty much
locked it.
Yeah, like call me when it's done.
So Peter showed you the opening and what you need to do?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you see her position, Paula?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, show her the adorable little position. that.
All right, guys. David sets up a shot, walks away, sequesters himself.
in his trailer with a monitor, and I communicate to him through my walkie-talkie, and then Peter and I set up the shot.
Walter.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, what I wanted to do, you know, there's a stack of books by Joseph Stalin up there.
Yes, these ones right here.
Correct. Well, I would want the camera up higher, looking at those and seeing Kendra past that, because I want that to be Eric's point of view. And one of those books may be open and propped up in the foreground so that it would be as though he's looking at it.
Peter says he doesn't like Stalin.
Point out to Peter that Stalin is dead, but Stalinism lives.
Peter says he's not dead enough.
He's right about that.
I don't particularly like it. I like him to be around. I don't like to hear his comments from afar through Walter. That's not something I particularly enjoy, but I understand why he feels the need to separate himself from the struggle that we go through to prepare a scene.
Yeah, this should do it. Ever since you could get a video tap, I've always thought, well, I want to see what's going on the set. Because what would happen is I would come to the set and somebody would have forgotten some element, whether it was the cameraman or the assistant director. So they would have forgotten some element. Maybe the lights were in place and it was wrong. And then I'd come to the set and then we'd have to relight it or we'd have to change stuff. So I thought, well, since we're getting a video tap from the camera anyway, why don't I have one in my trailer or my office or wherever I am at the studio? So I can see as the shot is developing and I can see things that are going wrong. But also I get other ideas, you know, off the set. I'm isolated. I'm not distracted by all the stuff that's going on, people lighting and chatting and doing whatever they're doing, and I'm just only looking at the shot and I can just manipulate it from here. If he holds it with his right hand and he's on the right side of the camera, that'll be a lot better because the camera's going to move right.
All right.
It's not bad to have some distance and isolation. But once you're actually working with the actors, you want to be on the set. You want to be able to touch them and talk to them.
Action!
And Kendra?
Sarah?
I think David's approach to filmmaking is that of an auteur director. When you make a film with him, you're venturing into something that is uniquely his own vision. And working with David as an actor forces you to become a lot more mature in your process because he doesn't do rehearsals and he doesn't have a read-through. I guess he expects you to do all of your work and come to set prepared and ready to work and ready to create this film and this character with him.
Cut!
And cut. Does her look up in regard to seeing her, or is it him saying, recite to me?
Who knows? Could be either. Could be the smell of sex.
And we missed you here because it takes us so long to get past it.
Right, yeah.
Just able to slow down for us.
Yeah.
You can do that.
I thought I would.
Oh, nice. Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting.
I won't do that.
No, it's interesting. I like it. I'm going to run it by him.
No, no. So slow down? So like half the speed, maybe?
Yeah, like the first two are fine, and then just while you're in the
Kind of
air,
hooked it.
wave.
Okay.
Yeah, and then just do a little slow down, and then that'll allow us to catch up to you.
Okay.
But I like your thinking. I like that. That's really cool.
I think when you're making films in the studio system, you feel a lot more like the work isn't yours. And when you're doing a film with David, I really feel like, okay, so I've made my decisions about this character. I've made my choices about who I want her to be, and this is who she is. So it's very different in that sense. The character is there on the page. I smell sex all over you. David, you know, it's not like he sat down with me and he said, okay, Elise is a virgin. I think you should explore this. Or Elise is sexually controlling and I think you should explore this. It's kind of somewhat alluded to in the script, and then you're left there to sit and think and do research and create a character based on what's already there.
Clear the background, folks.
Every actor works in a different way, and their prep is deep or not deep. I mean, some actors really draw a lot of strength out of background work. They might, of course, read Don DeLillo's book, and then they might read all of Don DeLillo's books. You know, it depends on how they work and what they need to feed them.
All right, folks. Stand by, guys. All right, officers, can you hold traffic now?
I was reading the book, Cosmopolis, and, I ran into David at an event, and he said, oh, yeah, I don't think you should read the book. I think Elise is slightly different than the book, and I think that might lead you astray. So, of course, I closed the book, I threw the book away, and I didn't read any more of it. But I had really only read about the first quarter of the book, so I'm looking forward to reading it when the film's over.
It was really a caution rather than a command. I would say I don't feel that you have to read the book in this case. Let the script be your guide.
Roll it, please.